I received unexpected news. I had inherited an old country house from a distant relative, someone I barely knew. The idea of owning such an ancient property intrigued me, and I decided that I needed to see the place with my own eyes. So, I prepared myself and made my way to the isolated village where the house was located. Upon arriving, I found a structure that, at first glance, seemed to be in good condition. The walls were intact, and the garden, though a bit overgrown, still retained its original shape. However, as soon as I set foot on the property, I felt something strange in the air. An unease that I couldn't quite explain washed over me, as if something invisible was watching me, waiting. As I climbed the narrow, creaking staircase that led to the attic, a chill ran down my spine. The place was dark and dusty, as if no one had been there for decades. The dim light from the lamp swaying from the ceiling barely illuminated the piles of old belongings, stacked boxes, and antique furniture covered with white sheets, all gathering dust. My eyes were drawn to an old wooden box, hidden in a dark corner, almost buried under a pile of ancient books. Carefully, I pulled the box out, feeling the weight of history in my hands. I opened the creaking lid, revealing what appeared to be an old camera, the kind I had only seen in old films and museums. Next to the camera was a stack of negatives, all still rolled up and undeveloped. My heart raced, gripped by an uncontrollable curiosity. I needed to see what these photos held, as if something inside me knew they contained important, perhaps even dangerous, secrets. Setting up a small makeshift studio in the basement of the house, I began the process of developing the negatives, eager to see what would emerge. As the first images began to appear on the photographic paper, my curiosity turned into a mix of horror and fascination. The photos showed people I had never seen before, men, women, even children, all in desperate poses. Some were running, as if fleeing from something that couldn't be seen. Others seemed frozen in fear, with expressions of pure terror etched on their faces, as if they were confronting something horrific, invisible to the camera but very real to them. With each new photo that emerged, the unease I had felt when entering the house only grew stronger. Who were these people? What terrified them so much? And most disturbing of all, why were these images here, forgotten and hidden, waiting to be discovered by me? I felt a shiver run through my body, as if the house itself were alive, watching my every move, waiting to reveal its darkest secrets. And I knew, in that moment, that I had crossed a line, that whatever was trapped in those photos was somehow connected to me. As the night wore on, a strange silence settled over the house, but it wasn't an ordinary silence. It felt as though something was waiting, merely lurking around me. As I tried to focus on my work, I felt a growing unease, a sense that I was not alone. And then, it began. First, there were the footsteps. Faint but unmistakable sounds echoing down the upstairs hallway. I froze for a moment, listening intently. Maybe it was just the old wood creaking, I tried to rationalize, but the footsteps continued, rhythmic and deliberate, as if someone was walking slowly, getting closer. I went up the stairs, forcing myself to check, but the hallway was empty, only shadows cast by the weak lights. Then, the doors started to open by themselves. First, I heard the soft sound of a doorknob turning, followed by a slight creak as a door began to open. When I went to check, I found the guest room door ajar, even though I was sure I had closed it. By now, fear was starting to take root in me, but I still fought to stay calm, trying to convince myself that these were just coincidences, effects of an old, storied house. But the whispers were the most disturbing. They weren't words I could understand, just low murmurs, like distant conversations between walls, a communication not meant for me, but one I could hear. They came from nowhere, sometimes close, sometimes far, and every time I heard them, my skin would crawl, my heart would race. I knew something was wrong, deeply wrong. Later that night, as I reviewed the photos I had taken during the day, I felt a chill as I noticed something had changed in them. The original images had been clear and normal, but now there were dark figures in the background. Shadows that shouldn't have been there, vaguely human shapes blending with the scene as if they were lurking. And the faces of the people I had photographed were distorted, almost unrecognizable, as if pain and terror had seized them at the moment the photo was taken. A frozen panic overcame me. It couldn't be just a coincidence. These changes were not natural. I began to realize that the camera was linked to something far more sinister than I could have imagined. Maybe it didn't just capture images, maybe it captured something deeper, something that should have remained hidden. As this realization sank in, the house seemed to close in around me, the shadows darker, the whispers louder. I knew, at that moment, that I was dealing with forces I didn't understand. And somehow, I had become a part of it. Desperate and unable to shake the feeling that something very dark was happening, I decided to investigate the history of the camera. I couldn't get the disturbing images and the inexplicable changes in the photos I had taken out of my mind. I needed to understand what was going on before things got any worse. I spent hours rummaging through old books, dusty documents, and even some online archives, searching for any clue that could help me. That's when I came across a name that appeared repeatedly in my research: Adrian Verhoeven, a renowned but mysterious photographer who lived in the early 20th century. As I read more about him, a profound sense of discomfort began to settle within me. Verhoeven was known for his obsession with capturing the essence of people in his photographs, but his methods were controversial and dark. It was said that he believed the camera, if used correctly, could capture more than just an image, it could capture the very soul. He claimed that by capturing a person's soul, he could freeze it in time, preserving it forever in the photograph. However, there was a price. The people he photographed began to disappear mysteriously, one by one, as if they had simply vanished from the world. What I discovered next was even more disturbing. The stories said that the souls of these people had not vanished, but had become trapped inside the photographs, condemned to an eternal cycle of torment. Verhoeven had achieved what he wanted, capturing the essence of life, but at the cost of imprisoning these souls in a state of perpetual suffering, unable to escape. My heart began to race as I read more about the camera he used, the very same camera now in my hands. The descriptions matched perfectly. I felt a chilling dread, as if Adrian Verhoeven himself were there, laughing at my ignorance, waiting for me to fall into the trap he had set. At that moment, the truth hit me like a punch. The camera was trying to capture my soul. I was just the next victim in a long line of people who had succumbed to the malevolent power of that camera. Everything made sense now, the dark figures in the photos, the faces distorted by terror. They were not just images, they were trapped souls, desperately trying to escape, warning me before it was too late. But now, I was in danger too. I could feel it in every fiber of my being. The camera was not just an inanimate object, it was alive, hungry, and I was its next target. If I didn't find a way to destroy this curse, I knew I would end up like those in the photos, forever lost in an endless cycle of pain and terror. The tension in the house was unbearable. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally, every sound seemed like sinister whispers, following me wherever I went. I knew time was running out. The camera was there, at the center of the table, pulsating with a malevolent energy that seemed to vibrate in the air around me. I needed to act. I had to destroy it before it did to me what it had done to so many others. With trembling hands, I picked up a heavy hammer I had found in the basement. The thought of destroying something so old and mysterious filled me with a mix of fear and relief, but I had no other choice. I had to free the souls trapped in that camera and, more importantly, save my own soul. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the rising panic within me, and raised the hammer. But then, before I could deliver the fatal blow, I heard a sudden click. The sound was soft, almost imperceptible, but it echoed in my mind like a shot. I looked down, horrified, and saw that the camera had activated on its own, the shutter firing with a cold, cruel precision. In an instant, I knew what it meant. It had taken my photo. A frozen despair overtook me. I ran to the camera, trying to rip out the film, destroy everything before it was too late, but the camera seemed to mock my pathetic attempt. I was racing against the inevitable. When I finally managed to open the back, revealing the film, my hand froze in midair. The revelation was already done. What would happen next was sealed. I tried to fight the terror that was flooding me, but the sense of loss and desperation was overwhelming. I looked around as if searching for an escape, a way out, but the house seemed to close in on me, tightening, suffocating. Days later, authorities found the house empty. There was no sign of me, just the old camera on the table, untouched. When they investigated further, they discovered a single roll of freshly developed film. The last image that appeared was mine. There I was, with a face distorted, eyes wide with pure terror, just like the other victims I had found in the photos. The camera was quiet now, as if satisfied, but the curse continued. The final image was a sinister reminder that the cycle of torment would never end. It would continue to seek out new souls, new victims, and I, now trapped in a cursed photograph, was part of it forever.